The Galactic Academy of Interstellar Sciences floated in the empty space between three star systems. It was the most famous school in the known universe. Students came from hundreds of different worlds to study here. They learned about planets, stars, biology, and the many forms of life that existed across the galaxy. Only the best students from each species earned a place at this academy. On this particular morning, something unusual was about to happen. Something that had never happened before in the Academy's 3,000-year history. A human was coming. Professor Veleth stood at the front of his advanced xenobiology classroom. He was a Thessan, a species known for their tall, thin bodies and skin so pale you could almost see through it. Blue veins ran beneath his flesh like rivers on a map. His large black eyes showed no emotion as he watched his students settle into their seats. The classroom was shaped like a half circle, with rows of seats rising up like stairs. About 40 students sat in those seats. They came from many different worlds. There were Mirakai with their silver fur and 4 arms. There were Calvary with their hard shell bodies and multiple eyes. There were Thesans like the professor, and several other species that looked nothing like each other. They had one thing in common. They all came from safe worlds. Peaceful worlds. Worlds where life was gentle and kind. The door at the bottom of the classroom slid, open with a soft hiss. Every head turned to look. She was shorter than most of them. Her skin was a warm brown color, and her black hair was pulled back from her face. She had only 2 eyes, 2 arms, 2 legs. By galactic standards, she looked almost boring, almost plain. But there was something about the way she moved that made everyone watch her. Her name was Una Park. She was 22 years old. She was from Earth, and she was the first human to ever attend the Galactic Academy. Professor Veleth cleared his throat. The sound was wet and strange to human ears. "Ah, yes. Class, this is our new student. She comes from Earth." He said the word like it tasted bad in his mouth. "Please make her feel welcome." Nobody said anything. Nobody moved. They just stared. Una walked up the stairs between the seats. She could feel their eyes on her. She could hear someone whisper the word Deathworlder, like it was a curse. She kept her face calm and empty. She had practiced this expression many times before leaving Earth. She knew she would need it. She found an empty seat at the back of the room and sat down. The student next to her, a young Thesan female, quietly moved 1 seat away. Una pretended not to notice. She took out her datapad and prepared to take notes. In the middle of the room, a Mirakai student named Talek watched the human with disgust. His silver fur moved in waves across his body, showing his emotions to anyone who knew how to read them. Right now, his fur said he was annoyed, offended, angry. Talek came from an important family. His mother sat on the Galactic Council. His father owned trading ships that flew between 100 worlds. Talek had grown up believing he was special, better than others. He had never met anyone he could not look down upon. Until now. He leaned toward his friend, a Mirakai named Brel, and whispered loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. "Can you believe they let a Deathworlder in here? I heard humans still cook animal flesh and eat it. Like savages." Brel made a sound of disgust. "I heard their planet is trying to kill them every moment of every day. Earthquakes, storms, predators. How did they even survive long enough to reach space?" "They probably got lucky," Talek said with a cruel laugh. "Give them a few generations and they will go extinct like they deserve." The students around them laughed quietly. The sound carried through the room. Una heard every word, but she did not react. She simply wrote the date at the top of her notes and waited for the lecture to begin. Professor Veleth began speaking about cellular adaptation in extreme environments. It was a topic Una knew well. On Earth, Life existed everywhere. In boiling hot springs, in frozen ice, in crushing ocean depths, in toxic caves. Earth life was stubborn and creative and refused to die. Just like humans. As the professor talked, Yuna listened carefully and took detailed notes. She had worked too hard to get here. She had passed tests that were designed for species with better memories, faster thinking, longer lifespans. She had proven herself again and again. She would not let whispers and stares stop her now. The lecture lasted 2 hours. When it ended, students began packing their things and leaving. Yuna stayed in her seat, reviewing her notes. She wanted to wait until most of them were gone. She did not want to walk through a crowd of aliens who saw her as less than them. But Talek had other plans. He walked up the stairs toward her, his 3 friends following behind him. He stopped at her row and looked down at her with his golden eyes. Mirakai eyes had no white in them. They were solid gold, like coins. Right now, those golden eyes were full of contempt. Human, he said. Not her name. Just her species. Spoken like an insult. Yuna looked up from her datapad. Her face was still calm. Still empty. Yes? I want to know something. How does it feel to be the weakest creature in this room? To know that any one of us could break you without effort? He smiled, showing teeth that were small and flat. Mirakai were not predators. They had evolved as gatherers on a gentle world. But Talek did not know how silly his threatening smile looked to someone from Earth. Yuna considered his question. She thought about telling him the truth, about explaining what Earth was really like, about describing the hurricanes and earthquakes and volcanic eruptions, about the diseases that killed millions, about the predators with claws and teeth that haunted human nightmares for 100,000 years. But she decided it was not the right time. Not yet. It feels fine, she said simply. Thank you for asking. Talek blinked. He had expected fear, anger, tears. He had not expected this quiet, empty response. It confused him, and confusion made him angrier. Watch yourself, Deathworlder, he said. You do not belong here. Everyone knows it. Sooner or later, you will fail. And when you do, I will be there to watch. He turned and walked away, his friends following. Yuna watched him go. Then she returned to her notes. She had survived earthquakes that leveled cities. She had survived diseases that killed millions of her ancestors. She had survived predators, famines, wars, and countless other disasters that would have ended most species. She could survive one. Arrogant alien with silver fur and golden eyes. That night, Yuna sat alone in her small dormitory room. It was designed for species that needed less space than humans, so she felt cramped and uncomfortable. But she did not complain. She never complained. She looked out her window at the stars. Somewhere out there, far away, was Earth, her home. A world that the galaxy called dangerous, hostile, deadly. Yuna called it home. She thought about her mother and father back in Bizon. She thought about her younger brother, Taiho, who had cried when she left. She thought about all the humans who had worked and struggled and died so that she could be here, in this room. Looking at these stars, she would not let them down. She would not let Talek or anyone else drive her away. She was human. And humans did not give up. Yuna turned off the light and went to sleep. Tomorrow would be another day of stares and whispers and quiet hatred. But she would face it the same way her ancestors had faced saber-toothed tigers and ice ages and world wars, with patience, with endurance, with the quiet knowledge that she was harder to kill than anyone here could possibly imagine. The galaxy did not know what humans were capable of, but they would learn. 3 weeks passed at the Galactic Academy. Yuna went to her classes every day. She took her notes. She studied late into the night. She answered questions when the professors asked them. And slowly, something unexpected began to happen. She started getting the highest scores in her class. At first, the other students thought it was a mistake. The professors must have graded her work wrong. There was no way a human, a creature from a Deathworld, could outperform species that had been traveling between stars for thousands of years. But it was not a mistake. Yuna's work was careful and detailed. Her answers showed deep understanding. Her research papers made connections that even the professors had not considered. She did not just memorize facts. She thought about them. She questioned them. She found new patterns and new meanings. This made some students curious about her. But it made Talek furious. Talek had always been the best student in advanced xenobiology. His family expected nothing less. When he was young, his mother had told him that Mirakai were one of the oldest and wisest species in the galaxy. They had built great cities when humans were still living in caves. They had traveled to distant stars when humans were still afraid of the dark. How could a human possibly be smarter than him? It was impossible. It was offensive. It was wrong. Talek began watching Yuna more closely. He noticed that she arrived early to every class. He noticed that she stayed late in the library. He noticed that she never complained, never showed emotion, never reacted to the insults that other students threw at her. This made him hate her even more. He wanted to see her break. He wanted to see her cry and beg and admit that she did not belong here. He wanted to prove that humans were just animals pretending to be civilized. He decided to make his move during Professor Velis' lecture on extreme environment adaptation. The classroom was full that day. Students from other classes had heard about the human and wanted to see her for themselves. They sat in the back rows and along the walls, watching with curious eyes. Professor Velith was explaining how different species adapted to survive on harsh worlds. He talked about the Kelvari, who had developed hard shells to protect themselves from radiation. He talked about the Thesans, who had evolved transparent skin to absorb more light from their dim sun. He talked about many species and many worlds. But he did not talk about Earth. He did not talk about humans. Talek raised one of his 4 hands. "Professor, I have a question." Velis paused and looked at him. "Yes, Talek? You have told us about many species and how they adapted to their environments. But you have not mentioned our human classmate." Talek's voice was sweet and polite, like honey hiding poison. "I think we would all benefit from learning about Earth. It is classified as a Class 7 Deathworld, after all. That is the most dangerous classification possible." The room became very quiet. Everyone looked at Yuna, who sat in her usual seat at the back. Her face showed nothing. Professor Velith looked uncomfortable. His pale skin became even paler. "I am not sure that is necessary. Earth biology is not part of our current curriculum." "But, Professor, how can we call this a complete education if we ignore an entire world, especially one so dangerous?" Talek turned in his seat to look directly at Yuna. "Perhaps our human classmate could share her knowledge with us. She must know her own planet better than anyone." More silence. More staring. Yuna met Talek's golden eyes without blinking. "I would be happy to answer questions about Earth," she said calmly. Talek smiled. His silver fur rippled with satisfaction. "Excellent. Then tell me, human. I have heard that your species evolved from prey animals. Is this true? Did your ancestors spend millions of years running and hiding from predators?" A few students laughed quietly. "That is partially true," Yuna said. "Early humans were not at the top of the food chain. We were hunted by many larger predators. Big cats, wild dogs, bears, and many others." "How embarrassing," Talek said loudly. "And yet you managed to survive. How did frightened little prey animals ever develop intelligence? Did you think your way out of being eaten?" More laughter. Louder this time. Yuna remained calm. We developed many survival strategies. We learned to use tools and work together in groups. We became very good at predicting danger and avoiding it. Talek stood up from his seat. He was enjoying himself now. He could feel the attention of every student in the room focused on him. This was his moment. Tools and groups, he repeated mockingly. How primitive. The Mirakai developed faster than light travel, while your species was still banging rocks together. We built empires across star systems while you were dying from simple diseases. Your average lifespan is what? 70 rotations around your sun? 80 if you are lucky? He walked down the stairs toward her, his fur standing tall with confidence. And yet, here you are, sitting in a classroom with your betters, pretending you belong. Your body is fragile. Your mind is slow. Your species is young and ignorant and barely civilized. He stopped at her row and looked down at her with contempt. Tell me, Deathworlder, what could you possibly offer to the galaxy? What makes you think you have any right to be here, among species that have achieved greatness while yours was still crawling in the mud? The room was completely silent now. Every eye was on Yuna. Some students looked uncomfortable. Others looked amused. A few looked curious about how she would respond. Professor Veleth seemed frozen at the front of the room. He knew he should stop this, but he did not know how. Talek's family was too powerful. And part of him, a small shameful part, also wanted to hear what the human would say. Yuna sat still for a long moment. She looked at Talek with her dark brown eyes. Then she looked around the room at all the other students watching her. Then she looked back at Talek Dot, and she smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was not a friendly smile. It was the kind of smile that made something old and primitive wake up in the back of every alien brain in the room. Something that whispered danger. You want to know about Earth, she said quietly. You want to know about humans. She closed her datapad and set it aside. Then I will tell you. She stood up slowly. She was shorter than Talek by almost half a meter. She should have looked small and weak standing next to him. But somehow, in that moment, she did not look small at all. Sit down, Talek, she said. Her voice was soft but clear. Sit down, and I will explain exactly what it means to come from a death world. Talek laughed nervously. I do not take orders from... Sit down. The words were not loud. They were not angry. But there was something in them that made Talek's legs move before his brain could stop them. He sat down heavily in the nearest empty seat, his golden eyes wide with confusion. He did not understand what had just happened. He did not understand why his body had obeyed her without his permission. But deep inside, in the oldest part of his brain, he was beginning to feel something he had never felt before. Fear. Yun. Walked slowly down the stairs to the front of the classroom. Every step was quiet and controlled. She moved like something that had spent millions of years learning how to hunt. Professor Veleth stepped aside without thinking. He pressed himself against the wall like a small animal trying to hide from a predator. Yuna turned to face the class. Let me tell you about my home, she said. And in that moment, the temperature in the room seemed to drop by several degrees. Something was about to change. Everyone could feel it. Yuna stood at the front of the classroom. Behind her, the large display screen showed a simple image of the galaxy. Around her, 40 alien students sat frozen in their seats. They watched her with wide eyes and held breath. She let the silence stretch for a long moment. She had learned this trick from her grandfather, who had been a fisherman in Bizan. He always said that patience was the most powerful weapon. A predator that rushed would miss its prey. A predator that waited would always eat. When she finally spoke, her voice was quiet and calm. Earth is the third planet from our sun. It has one moon. It orbits in what your scientists call the habitable zone. From space, it looks blue and green and white. It looks peaceful, beautiful even. She paused. It is not peaceful. She pressed a button on her datapad, and the image on the screen changed. Now it showed Earth from space, covered in swirling white clouds. Our planet is 70% water. Not just any water. Salt water. The kind that would dissolve most of you from the inside out if you tried to drink it. We cannot drink most of the water on our own planet. We die of thirst surrounded by an ocean. A Thesan student made a small noise of horror. Yuna continued as if she had not heard. That ocean is not empty. It contains creatures like the great white shark, which has been killing since before my species existed. It contains jellyfish whose poison can stop a heart in minutes. It contains squid large enough to fight whales and octopuses smart enough to solve puzzles and escape from cages. She changed the image again. Now the screen showed a massive gray shark with rows of teeth. But we do not hide from the ocean. We swim in it. For fun? Human children learn to swim almost as soon as they learn to walk. We dive deep into the water to find food and treasure and adventure. We built ships to cross the ocean when we did not know what was on the other side. We did this for thousands of years before we had any technology at all. Talek shifted in his seat. His silver fur was lying flat against his body now, which among Mirakai was a sign of fear. Yuna noticed but said nothing. She changed the image again. Our atmosphere is 21% oxygen. I see that some of you recognize what that means. Several students nodded. They had learned about oxygen in chemistry class. It was one of the most reactive elements in the universe. It corroded metal. It fed fires. It destroyed organic matter. We breathe this gas with every breath, Yuna said. Our blood carries it through our bodies. It gives us energy, but it also slowly destroys us from the inside. Every breath we take is a small step toward death. Our own air is killing us, and we cannot live without it. She let that sink in. Your worlds have different atmospheres. Safer atmospheres. On most of your planets, fire cannot exist because there is not enough oxygen to feed it. But on Earth, fire is everywhere. Lightning strikes our forests and creates walls of flame that stretch for hundreds of kilometers. We have learned to control fire, to use it for cooking and warmth and building. But it can still kill us at any moment. The image changed to show a massive forest fire. Orange and red flames reaching toward a dark sky filled with smoke. And then there is the gravity. Yuna took a step toward the students. Several of them leaned back in their seats. Earth's gravity is stronger than most inhabited worlds. Much stronger. Your bones would crack and your muscles would tear if you tried to walk on my planet. But humans are born into this gravity. We grow up with it. We become strong because we have no choice. She raised her arm and made a fist. These muscles that you see as weak, they develop to fight against a force that would crush you. When I walk on your space station, I feel light. I feel like I could jump and never come down. Your normal is easy for me, but my normal would destroy you. A Calvary student raised one of her appendages nervously. How do you survive the predators? I have read that Earth has millions of predator species. Yuna smiled again. That strange, dangerous smile. Good question. Yes, Earth has many predators. Lions, tigers, bears, wolves, crocodiles, snakes, spiders, insects that carry deadly diseases. For most of our history, we were not at the top of the food chain. We were food. She began walking slowly along the front of the classroom. But we did something no other prey species has ever done. We refused to accept our place. We looked at the predators that hunted us, and we decided to hunt them instead. The room was completely silent. We did not have claws or fangs or venom. So we made them. We shaped rocks into blades. We carved wood into spears. We learned to throw with accuracy that no other species can match. A human can throw a rock and hit a target from 50 meters away. We can do this because our shoulders evolved specifically for throwing. We are the only species in the known galaxy with this ability. She mimed throwing a spear, her arm moving in a smooth, powerful arc. But our greatest weapon was not our tools. It was our endurance. She stopped walking and faced the class directly. Talek called humans prey animals. He was right. We were prey, but we became something else. We became persistence predators. A Mirakai student frowned. I do not understand. What is a persistence predator? It means we do not need to be faster than our prey. Yuna explained. We do not need to be stronger. We only need to be more stubborn. She pointed at Talek, who flinched. Your species, the Mirakai, can run fast in short bursts. So can most animals on Earth. They can outrun a human easily in a sprint, but they cannot run for long. They overheat. They get tired. They have to stop and rest. Her eyes were locked on Talek's. Humans do not stop. We sweat to cool our bodies. We have the most efficient cooling system of any land animal on Earth. We can run for hours without stopping. Days, if we have to. We would chase an antelope across the grassland, jogging slowly while it sprinted and rested, sprinted and rested. We followed it until it collapsed from exhaustion. Then we killed it. She let the words hang in the air. We did not hunt by being fast or strong. We hunted by refusing to give up. Our prey would run until its heart stopped, and we would still be walking toward it. That is what humans are. We are the monsters that never stop following. Several students had pressed themselves against the backs of their seats. Professor Veleth had not moved from his spot against the wall. His transparent skin had become almost white. Yuna continued. You mentioned that humans live only 70 or 80 years. You are right. Our lives are short compared to yours. But do you know what that means? Nobody answered. It means we are always in a hurry. It means every generation pushes harder and faster than the one before. It means we do not have time to wait for change. We make change happen. She held up her hand and counted on her fingers. In less than 100 years, we went from the first powered flight to landing on our moon. In less than 50 years, we went from simple computers to machines that think. In less than 30 years, we went from dreaming about space travel to actually achieving it. She lowered her hand. Your species took 10,000 years to develop faster than light travel. We will do it in less than 200. Not because we are smarter than you, but because we cannot afford to wait. We are always running out of time, so we learn to make the most of every moment. Talek's fur was pressed so flat against his body that he looked almost bald. His golden eyes were wide, and his four hands gripped the edge of his desk. Yuna turned to look directly at him. You asked what I could offer to the galaxy, she said softly. You asked why I think I belong here. She walked toward him slowly, each step deliberate and controlled. I will tell you. Yuna walked toward Talek with slow, measured steps. The sound of her footsteps was the only noise in the room. Every student held their breath. Every eye followed her movement. Talek wanted to stand up. He wanted to run, but his body would not obey him. He sat frozen in his seat, watching the human approach like a small animal watching a predator emerge from the shadows. This is wrong, he thought desperately. She is the prey. I am the superior species. Why am I afraid? But fear did not care about logic. Fear was older than thought. Fear came from the deepest parts of the brain, from millions of years of evolution. And right now, every cell in Talek's body was screaming that he was in danger. Yuna stopped directly in front of him. She was still shorter than him, even with him sitting down. But somehow, she seemed to tower over everything in the room. You want to know what humans offer? She said quietly. Let me tell you something about my people that your databases do not contain. Something that cannot be measured by tests or recorded in files." She leaned slightly closer. Talek pressed back in his seat. "We are the only known species in the galaxy that domesticated apex predators." The words hung in the air like smoke. "Do you know what a wolf is?" Yuna asked. "It is a predator from Earth. Fast, strong, with teeth that can crush bone and a pack hunting strategy that can bring down prey 10 times its size. Wolves terrified our ancestors. They hunted us. They killed us." She paused. "So we made them our friends." A Thesan student made a choking sound. "You... what?" Yuna turned to look at her. "We took wolves, one of the most dangerous predators on our planet, and we turned them into dogs. We bred them for thousands of years. We taught them to love us and protect us and obey us. Now they live in our homes. They sleep in our beds. They guard our children." She turned back to Talek. "We took animals that could kill us, and we made them family. That is what humans do. We do not run from things that frighten us. We do not hide. We find a way to survive, and then we find a way to win." Her voice dropped even lower. "We have domesticated creatures that could tear us apart with a single bite. We have tamed horses that could crush our skulls with their hooves. We keep cats in our homes, descendants of predators that hunted our ancestors in the dark. We swim with sharks. We climb mountains that kill us. We explore caves that could collapse and bury us alive." She reached out and placed one hand on Talek's shoulder. He flinched so hard that his chair scraped against the floor. "Do you know what this is?" she asked, squeezing gently. "This is a human grip. It does not look strong, but our ancestors used hands like these to climb trees and escape predators, to hang from cliffs, to strangle prey when our weapons failed." Talek could feel the pressure of her fingers through his fur. It was not painful, but there was strength there. Hidden strength. The kind that did not show until it was too late. "You called me weak," Yuna said. "But weakness is not about muscles or claws or size. Weakness is about giving up. And humans never give up." She released his shoulder and stepped back. "Let me tell you about the history of my species. Not the technology, not the science, the survival." She began pacing slowly in front of the class. 70,000 years ago, a supervolcano erupted on Earth. It blocked out the sun for years. The planet grew cold. Food became scarce. Our population dropped to less than 10,000 individuals. We were almost extinct. She held up her hand. We survived. 12,000 years ago, the Ice Age ended. Floods covered entire continents. Sea levels rose. Coastlines disappeared. Entire civilizations were wiped out. Another finger. We survived. Throughout our history, plagues have killed millions of us. The Black Death, smallpox, influenza, diseases that could kill 1 in 3 people. Diseases that spread so fast our doctors could not keep up. Another finger. We survived. We have fought wars that killed tens of millions. We have created weapons that could destroy our entire planet. We have poisoned our own air and water and food. We have done terrible things to ourselves and to each other." She looked around the room at all the watching faces. "And we are still here. We always survive. Because that is what humans do. We break and we heal. We fall and we get back up. We die by the millions and the survivors keep going." She turned back to Talek. "You think you are superior because your species is older. Because your technology is more advanced. Because your bodies are more comfortable." She leaned in close enough that he could see his own reflection in her dark eyes. "But your species has never faced extinction. You have never known true fear. You have never had to fight for every single breath, every single day, for 100,000 years. Her voice dropped to barely a whisper. That fear you are feeling right now? That ancient instinct telling you that something dangerous is standing in front of you. That is your body recognizing what mine already knows. She smiled that terrible smile. You are not the predator in this room. Talek's heart was beating so fast he thought it might explode. His fur was pressed flat against his skin. His golden eyes were wide with pure, primal terror. He had never felt anything like this in his entire life. Around the room, the other students were equally frozen. Some had tears in their eyes. Some were gripping their desks so hard, their appendages were shaking. Some had stopped breathing entirely. The silence was absolute, complete. Heavy. Even the air circulation system seemed to have stopped. Eunice straightened up and turned away from Talek. She walked calmly back to the front of the classroom and faced everyone. You asked me what I have to offer, she said, her voice returning to its normal soft tone. Here is my answer. I offer everything that my species has learned from surviving the unsurvivable. Every lesson written in the blood of billions of humans who came before me. Every adaptation. Every innovation. Every impossible victory against impossible odds. She looked around the room one more time. Earth tried to kill us. Every day. Every generation. And we are still here. The galaxy thinks we are primitive because we are young. But we are not primitive. We are forged. She picked up her datapad from the desk where she had left it. Class 7 Deathworld, she said quietly. That is what you call Earth. Do you know what we call it? Nobody answered. Nobody could speak. We call it home. And we love it. Despite everything it has done to us, we love our planet. We protect it. We fight for it. Because humans do not run from hardship. We do not abandon things because they are difficult. She looked directly at Professor Veleth, who was still pressed against the wall like he was trying to disappear. I believe that concludes my presentation on human adaptation to extreme environments. Professor, may I return to my seat? Veleth's mouth opened and closed several times before any sound came out. Yes. Class is dismissed. Students began standing up on shaky legs. Some of them simply sat where they were, unable to move. Talek remained frozen in his seat, staring straight ahead at nothing. Una walked calmly up the stairs to her usual seat at the back. She sat down and opened her datapad and began reviewing her notes. As if nothing unusual had happened. As if she had not just terrified an entire room full of aliens. As if she had not just changed everything they thought they knew about humans. She allowed herself one small smile, hidden behind her datapad. Grandfather would be proud, she thought. Patience is indeed the most powerful weapon. The story spread through the Galactic Academy like fire through dry grass. Within hours, every student had heard some version of what happened in Professor Veleth's classroom. By the next day, the story had spread to other space stations. By the end of the week, it was being discussed on planets hundreds of light years away. The human who silenced the room without violence. The Deathworlder who made an entire class afraid with nothing but words. The girl from Earth who smiled like a predator. Talek did not return to class for 3 days. When he finally came back, he sat in the front row, as far from Una as possible. He never looked at her. He never spoke about her. He answered questions when the professor asked them, but his voice had lost its confidence. His silver fur no longer rippled with pride. Some students felt sorry for him. Others thought he had gotten what he deserved. Una noticed the change in him, but she did not feel satisfied or proud. She had not wanted to humiliate him. She had simply wanted to be left alone. She hoped that now, finally, she could focus on her studies without constant mockery and insults. But something unexpected happened instead. Students began approaching her. At first, It was just one or two brave souls. A young cavalry named Rin, who had always been curious about other species. A quiet Thesan named Peril, who had been bullied himself for being too small and weak. They did not come to mock her. They came to ask questions. Is it true that humans can regrow their skin? Rin asked one evening in the dining hall. Yuna looked up from her meal. The cavalry had 4 large eyes that blinked in an alternating pattern. Her shell was a deep purple color, and her voice was soft and hesitant. Yes, Yuna said. Our skin regenerates constantly. Small cuts heal in a few days. Larger wounds take longer, but they still close on their own. Rin's eyes widened. That is incredible. Most species cannot do that. Once our shells crack, they stay cracked. Yuna nodded. We can also regrow broken bones. It takes time, but they heal stronger than before. Stronger? Rin seemed unable to believe it. Your bodies repair themselves and become stronger? Sometimes. It depends on the injury. Yuna took a bite of her food. Our muscles work the same way. When we exercise hard, our muscle fibers tear. Then they heal back thicker and stronger. That is how we build strength. Rin sat down across from Yuna without asking permission. She seemed to have forgotten her fear entirely. What about disease? I heard Earth has millions of diseases that try to kill you. That is true. But our bodies have immune systems that fight back. When we get sick and recover, we become resistant to that disease. We also created vaccines, which teach our immune systems to fight diseases before we ever catch them. More students began gathering around the table. They listened quietly as Yuna explained how humans survived in a world that was constantly trying to kill them. She told them about medicine and surgery and prosthetic limbs. She told them about how humans could survive losing organs, losing limbs, losing half their blood. We are very hard to kill, she said simply. Not impossible, but very hard. A Mirakai student, younger than Talik with lighter fur, raised one of his hands. Is it true that humans can eat almost anything? Yuna laughed softly. It was the first time any of them had heard her laugh, and it surprised them. It was a warm sound. A friendly sound. Almost anything, she agreed. Our stomachs produce acid strong enough to dissolve metal. We can eat plants, animals, fungi, and many things that would poison other species. Some humans eat food so spicy that it causes physical pain, and they enjoy it. They enjoy pain? The Mirakai looked horrified. Some of us do. We call it spicy food culture. We even have competitions to see who can eat the hottest peppers. The students exchanged confused glances. This did not match their idea of the terrifying Deathworlder. This version of Yuna was almost friendly. Over the following weeks, Yuna found herself surrounded by curious classmates. They asked about everything. About Earth's seasons and weather and animals. About human families and relationships and emotions. About music and art and stories. Yuna answered every question honestly. She did not hide the dark parts of human history. She told them about wars and cruelty and destruction. But she also told them about kindness and sacrifice and love. We are not good or evil, she explained one day. We are capable of both. The same species that created weapons of mass destruction also created poetry and music and medicine. We have people who kill for no reason and people who die to save strangers. We are complicated. Pero, the small Thesan, tilted his head. That sounds exhausting. It is, Yuna admitted. But it also means we can choose. We are not locked into one way of being. We can decide what kind of humans we want to be. The semester continued. Yuna kept getting the highest scores in her classes. But now, instead of jealousy and resentment, she received respect. Students who had once whispered Deathworlder, like a curse, now nodded to her in the hallways. Professor Veleth began including Earth in his lectures. He talked about human adaptation and survival with a new tone of respect. Sometimes he asked Yuna to add details or correct his information. Even Talek slowly began to change. He never apologized to Yuna directly. But one day, he raised his hand and asked a question about human medicine. His voice was quiet and polite. He looked at Yuna for just a moment, and something passed between them. Not friendship, but perhaps understanding. Near the end of the semester, Rin came to Yuna's dormitory room. The Kelvari stood in the doorway, her 4 eyes blinking nervously. "I wanted to thank you," she said. Why? Yuna looked up from her studies. "Thank me for what?" "For teaching us. For being patient with our questions. For not—" she hesitated. "For not being what we expected." Yuna smiled. "What did you expect?" "I do not know. Something scary. Something violent. You showed us that you could be frightening, but you chose to be kind instead. That means something." Yuna set down her datapad and turned to face the Kelvari fully. "Can I tell you a secret, Rin?" Rin nodded eagerly. "That day in class when I gave my speech about Earth and humans, I was terrified." Rin's eyes widened. "You were?" "Yes. My heart was beating so fast I thought everyone could hear it. My hands were shaking. I had to hide them behind my back so no one would notice. But you seemed so calm, so confident." "That is another human skill," Yuna said with a small laugh. "We are very good at pretending we are not afraid. We have had to be. On Earth, showing fear could get you killed. So we learn to hide it. To act brave even when we are terrified." Rin was quiet for a moment. Then she asked, "Why are you telling me this?" Yuna stood and walked to her small window. The stars shone cold and bright against the blackness of space. "Because I want you to understand something important. Humans are not brave because we feel no fear. We are brave because we fear and act anyway. We are not strong because nothing can hurt us. We are strong because we have been hurt again and again, and we keep going." She turned back to Rin. "That is the real lesson of Earth. Not that we are dangerous. Not that we are survivors. But that we have choices. We can be predators or protectors. We can destroy or create. We can hate or love." She extended her hand toward Rin, palm up. "I came to this academy alone. I was ready to stay alone for my entire time here. I was ready to be hated and feared and isolated. But you and the others chose to see me as something more than a Deathworlder. You chose to be curious instead of afraid." Rin looked at the extended hand. Then, slowly she reached out one of her own appendages and grasped it. "That is what I want to offer the galaxy," Yuna said softly. "Not fear, not violence, but the chance to understand each other. The chance to be stronger together than we are apart." Rin's grip tightened. "I think I understand now." "Good." Yuna smiled warmly. "Because there's a lot of work to do. The galaxy is big and dangerous, and there are many problems that need solving. Humans cannot fix everything alone. But together, with friends like you, maybe we can make things a little better." Outside the window, the stars continued to shine. Somewhere among them was Earth, a small blue planet orbiting an ordinary yellow sun. A world that had tried to kill its children for millions of years. A world that had forged them into something extraordinary. And now, one of those children stood on a space station far from home, holding hands with an alien who had become a friend. The galaxy was changing. It just did not know it yet.